Well, hello everyone. I hope everyone is having a lovely October. And so I'm back to talk about the muses. For all of you who are omnistic, polytheistic, who have a focus on Hellenism or Hellenic paganism, the muses are amazing deities to work with, especially the one I'm presenting today. And I am presenting some rituals associated with this deity that I personally for the last year have worked and have delivered amazing results with. So today I am going to be talking about Terpsichore. Now, for years, I pronounced her name Terpsichore, and I was redirected multiple times. But I've worked with her so closely this last year. We're on a nickname basis, so I refer to her as Terpsy. So throughout the presentation, I will refer to her as Terpsy, but the proper pronunciation of her name is Terpsichore, not Terpsichore. A common, it's some of these names, you got to nickname them because they're hard to pronounce. But so I am going to talk about her. I'm going to talk about her ritual workings, a little bit about her background. One thing I did want to point out before I start the presentation is this particular muse. All of the muses, of course, bring inspiration and motivation into our lives in different areas. And this particular muse, I find that astrology definitely ties into spiritual work. I know a lot of people keep those two things in separate wheelhouses, but if you bring them together, you get a more dynamic picture of how things work and how to approach deital work. And with this particular deity, any of you who are astrologists, if you have a difficult Mars, a 12th house Mars, if you have a difficult Saturn, a first house Saturn, if you're dealing with difficult transits with your Mars or your Saturn, this deity, Terpsy, is beautiful and wonderful to work with in terms of bringing in balance and moderation. For those of you who are strongly tied into astrology, like myself, if you are a forensics astrologist or you do forensics astrology, Terpsichore is a wonderful deity to work with, not just for clarity when you are working on charts, but again, Mars. I'm going to go back to Mars repeatedly. As a forensics astrologer, when we're looking at Mars, a lot of times, Mars gets a bad rap, just like Saturn. There's a lot of aggression there. There can be violence. There's this kind of astrology, insider joke about Mars being the murder planet, but kind of, if you do enough forensics charting and astrology, yeah, Mars has earned its reputation as, being a bit murdery. So, Mars, though, if it is transmuted appropriately, if you work with that energy and transmute it, you can take that aggressive, somewhat violent energy and you can really turn it into strong-willed motivation and drive, tunnel vision focus to achieve your goals, especially if they're of a physical nature. People who are trying to lose weight, people who work in the sporting industry, if you compete athletically, these are all transmutable traits that come from Mars, and working with Terpsy definitely can help you do that. The other thing is with Saturn. I have a first house Saturn with a Leo ascendant. And I find a lot of my fellow first house Saturn individuals, especially with Leo right there, we do physically, physical magic is important, but we struggle with the physicality of our meat suits, right? Our meat suits usually have issues. We usually struggle with weight, vascular issues, cardiovascular issues, edema. And depending on what Jupiter is doing in your chart, that can really be blown up to very unmanageable levels. And so if you have a first house Saturn, especially with Leo right there, Terpsy is wonderful, again, in helping to transmute and regulate that energy to make it beneficial for you and not where you're feeling like physically in your meat suits, you're having this upward battle your whole life to maintain weight or maintain good health or your vascular system, things of that nature. And I'm going to break that down in today's presentation, but I just kind of wanted to give that as a primer For any of you that are new to the series, we have a couple of new people that are new to the series. And also for those of you that have been with me for some time, I try to point out, you know, where working with these specific deities are going to help the most. And the other thing with Terpsy, of course, is physical magic. It is dance magic. It is trance magic. It is gym magic, gym witchery. And I'll break all of that down today in our presentation. The Muse service is tomorrow. So for those of you in our Patreon, $5 a month tier or higher, make sure if you have any special petitions, you get those to me tonight. The community group service will be tomorrow. So without further ado, let me pull up my PowerPoint here on Terpsy. All right, where did I put her? There she is. All right. So, uh, like I said, I butchered her name for years. I always called her Terpsichore. It is Terpsichore is the proper pronunciation. And for means of today, I refer to her as Terpsy because I've worked with her so closely for the last year. So we're calling her Terpsy. She likes it. All right. Okay, so she is associated with dance, choral song, especially trance dancing. I'm going to be going into that kind of as a deep dive today because that raises energy for manifestation. Physical magic that involves our bodies, our physical meat suits. So I'll be going into dance magic and some group dance magic as well as some gym magic. Now, I will tell you if you're on our YouTube or on our Patreon, I think on YouTube, I posted an older Patreon video that actually goes into some of the physical magic of old traditional workings. So things like the compass round, treading the mill, that is in the traditional rites of magic video, which is free for everybody. So you can look at that as well. That is part of Terpsy's wheelhouse. So writing rituals of celebration. So a little bit of, I wouldn't say that she is dominant, definitely in the persuasion and influence area, but there's a little bit of that there through the written word. Not so much as in like last month's presentation when we were talking about sacred poetry, but certainly magic for speaking your truth. So if you're doing some sort of writing, like automatic writing, I think, she has a stronger foothold in. Using play and magic in everyday life, performance theater, all of the muses, I think, are attached to performance theater and performance arts. When we're kind of more playful and we're using sometimes props to work our magic every single day. So when you see Terpsy, usually in the old art depictions, she is in a flowing robe. There's usually like these dancing kind of like weightless veils around her. And like many of the other muses, she usually has a lyre or a small plucking instrument called a plectrum. And snakes, snakes are usually also depicted with Terpsy. Sometimes when you're looking at muse art, it's hard to determine who is who. So I always kind of point out that symbolism so that you guys have a better understanding. So, of course, she inspired rhythmic and ordered movement as the daughter of Zeus, very powerful. The term terpsichorean is an adjective, and it's derived from her name, meaning relating to dance or relating to dancing. So, as her domain was dance and choral music, she did provide inspiration for dancers and singing choruses, and that's true to this day. That's not just back in the Greco-Roman pantheon days of old. That's still to this day. You will find Terpsy kind of depicted in different performance halls, different performance theaters. She is often portrayed holding that lyre, which if you guys are, if you've been in the muse service here for a hot minute, almost all the muses have a couple of art, depictions with that lyre. It's just a very popular instrument. And it was used to accompany poetry and dance. Now, I'm not going to read this, but I did include it so you guys can save this video and come back to it. This is an anonymous poem that was written for Terpsy. It's called The Spell of, I'm going to say Terpsichore, and that's not how you pronounce it. Look, it only takes me a hot second. to look at her name and want to mispronounce it. But the spell of Terpsy. So this was written by an anonymous poet years and years and years ago. I wanted to show it with you. I believe that he wrote this as an offering to Terpsy. I think she must have been working some magic for him, but I wanted to share it. It's one of the few um, written, I guess, offerings, poems, or writings that we can find for Terpsy, this particular muse. So I want to jump into trance dancing right away. Trance dancing is a very powerful experience because it does invite you to kind of dive deep within yourself. It's usually not intended to communicate with the outside world, but it kind of takes place within the context of your spiritual personal growth, your inner transformation. So, that, of course, is important when we're transmuting energy. A lot of you are solo practitioners. And so, this is a huge thing for you because in order to transmute energy on your own, you do need to build a lot of energy, and so trance dancing provides that. So a contemporary trance dance is usually a very powerful experience. It kind of invites you to kind of drop your masks. We all have to wear masks in the outside world to survive and pay our bills and get through the day-to-day mundane. But the masks we usually wear are of that limited conditioning that we've been kind of brainwashed into by media and family and society as a whole. And there's a separation that happens because of that. It kind of separates us from spirit. So when you're trance dancing, it kind of drops that limitation, that mask, that boundary, and you can kind of return home deep to your spiritual self. Now, usually that is done in a blindfold. There was this great yoga studio back in Racine, Wisconsin. It was on 6th Street, right in downtown there. And they would have this once a month. And they did do it blindfolded as well. And it was such an amazing experience. But a lot of yoga studios, wherever you're at in the world, I'm sure there's probably a yoga studio near you that does offer some form of trance meditation or trance dancing. So check it out for sure. But anyways, while dancing with that blindfold, you kind of embark on that journey of inner discovery. So when you're doing these types of rituals, they should take place within a safely defined space. The process should be guided with care and loving attention. So make sure you pay attention to your surroundings, basically. Have everything set up in advance so it's safe so that you're not dancing around in a blindfold hurting yourself, basically. Um, so this is one of the most meaningful and powerful experiences that human beings are capable of having. So we all should aim to encounter this activity at least once in our lives while we're developing our spirit, while we're evolving spiritually. It sort of helps to cleanse the doors of perception. It frees ourselves from the constraints of ordinary perception, right? The day to day mundane, those shackles of ego. We all have those. I don't care who you are and how long you've been practicing. Ego is attached, it's part of our makeup, our spiritual makeup. It allows us to transcend time and space, right? It elevates us to another level of functionality. So this brings in the capacity to really truly behold what we call paradox, right? Where you can hold multiple perspectives in your mind at one time, where you can conceive of opposites and somehow just hold them both, close to you at the same time, which is hard to do. It sounds easy, but it's hard. And trance dancing can teach you that skill. Working with Terpsy, of course, can teach you that skill. So the experience also brings the sense that what was seen and what was understood and what was felt has deeper meaning than our everyday reality. And that this depth of meaning can last indefinitely. We don't have to let it go the minute we take the blindfold off. It also brings the experience that everything is interconnected. And it really truly is. I believe in cosmic unity. There is a oneness with everything. That's why I'm omnistic. That's why my practice is omnistic and polytheistic. So often this is accompanied by immense positive feelings of bliss, ecstasy, gratitude, and a sense of connection with the divine. So many people that do trance dancing will have that kind of bliss moment. I sometimes compare that to when I was much younger. I used to go church hopping, and I, for a time, was going to a Pentecostal church. And in the Pentecost faith, which is a branch of Christianity, They believe the Holy Spirit comes to you and you absorb the Holy Spirit. And, you see that physically, it almost looks like people are having fits or some sort of like seizure or something like that, right? When you look at these activities, like if you're watching a Pentecostal service, and they tell you that if you refuse to receive the Holy Spirit when it comes to you, that the Holy Spirit will never return, that door can never be reopened. Well, obviously that's, I don't agree with that philosophy, but this reminds me a lot of what I witnessed in the Pentecostal churches is trance dancing seems very similar to the reception of the Holy Spirit and the physical reaction the individual would have to that. So I'm just kind of making a comparison for you because I do know I have some Christian pantheon individuals on here. So it's an experience beyond language. You can't really quite put it into words because it is characterized by kind of that fluid quality and it dissolves just as quickly as it emerges. Again, that Pentecostal Holy Spirit absorption, trance dancing, very similar. So even though it's a temporary experience, that change that you experience in that moment is lasting. And it does transform you. It brings a new perspective. You have a new visionary understanding, and that is deeply felt. And you use that in your magical practice. So, music, dance, and spirituality, they're all very interconnected. Moving our bodies to rhythmic and melodious sounds. I don't know if I'm pronouncing melodious. It sounds horrible, but melodies, right? It's not only pleasant, but music and dance has a mind altering effect and it contributes to our well being. And that's been scientifically proven. There are scientists that have done research on this. You can Google it. But that is true. It changes things. When you're dancing and when you're listening to music, there is a physiological change that occurs. So, a typical trance dance is usually an integral part of a ritual, especially the old traditional rituals. These kind of rituals are ancient. They can be found in cultures all over the world. I did a presentation on Tungusic shamanism several months back as part of our Sacred Sexuality series. And so I'll use them as an example. That video is also on our YouTube for free if you didn't see it. But many, many other cultures I listed here, the Navajo, the Sioux of North America, the Siberian shamans, Tungusic shamanism, the voodoo practitioners of Benin and Haiti, Cuban Santeria, the Sami in Scandinavia, we go on and on here. I have a whole list, the Yoruba in West Africa, all these different spiritual practices, these spiritual networks, right? Umbrellaed into omnism, into polytheism, use trance dance music as part of their spiritual practice, part of their ritual. The Umbanda in Brazil, they actually are unique because they combine Roman Catholicism with religious practices from the Yoruba from West Africa. So you'll find that too. You'll find a lot of hodgepodgery, I call it. That's like Southern conjure, your powwow Dutch Appalachian magic. There is a lot of omnistic, polytheistic hodgepodging. And that's a beautiful, wonderful thing because we are all interconnected and all of these deities and energies are interconnected. So why shouldn't we be infusing them? We should be. I mean, if you want to be powerful, if you want to manifest, you should be infusing. So going back to the Umbanda, they believe that a person becomes possessed with spirit during a trance dance. And it can be endowed that person with the power to actually heal others. And there are a lot of these kind of Southern traveling Christian performance churches that do this, and they've done this for many, many years. I don't know. I think they're considered non-denominational, but dancers are also known to go into trance during Irish river dances, the Balinese mask dancers, and the Indian temple dances. So, I mean, all over the world, we see trance dance, and that's all part of Terpsi's wheelhouse. When you're trance dancing, you are giving offering to Terpsi. Trance dancing is ageless, and to this day, the energy finds its way. For example, through the parties of dancing youth. So, I mean, it's just something that has always existed and always will. I like this picture of Terpsi too, by the way. Terpsy is the one muse where, for whatever reason, she's got at least one boob out in most of her art. All right, trance dancing is a healthy form of movement for people of all ages. Now, you can adjust your dance piece according to your physical condition. During sports and dance, your brain produces endorphins, creating a sense of happiness and well being. So that should be expected. Trance dancing is a great way to release limited conditioning. We talked about that a little bit earlier. You know, during our lifetimes, we develop all kinds of skills for survival and to be able to function in society. Again, we are stuck in these meat suits and we have to survive in these meat suits. Um, Sometimes though we learn things that make us either feel bad about ourselves or our lives. I always compare that with today's day and age of social media. It's, everybody's always comparing themselves, trying to keep up with the Joneses, that keep up with the Joneses mentality, coveting, right? Anyways, things that get in the way of our happy life when we're keeping up with the Joneses, that definitely gets in the way of having a happy life. Ideas and habits, haven't evolved with changing knowledge and circumstances and are really due for revision in society as a whole. And you can see that, all the wars and the nonsense that we deal with on the day to day. So, a trance dance ritual can help you transform old habits and adapt an attitude towards life that is really better adapted to the present day, right? The present tense, the present energy of the world. Too bad we can't get all these politicians to trance dance and end this federal shutdown. Anyway, it can help you with transitions in your life. So, trance dancing is a great way to transmute energy to benefit you if you're starting a new job, if you're going to be beginning a cohabitation with a new partner or roommate, if you have a child leaving the house, if you're going to be going through that empty nest syndrome. You can also create specific rituals for moments like right now, like, midsummer or midwinter. We just left Mabon, we're going into Samhain. Starting a new year and releasing the old. New Year's is right around the corner. So it's kind of welcoming in the new, or dancing to the rhythm of nature. You don't really need a reason, but these are some of the reasons that you might want to incorporate it. Trance dance can be a source of inspiration for all kinds of aspects in your life. Maybe you're starting a business, you're making art, you're an artist, or you're in the middle of writing a book. So trance dance can help with all these things. Again, because you are doing muse work, it's very Hellenistic. It is bringing in that motivation, that inspiration from the muses. It can be a moving meditation or a dancing prayer. Sometimes trance dance is referred to a moving meditation or a dancing prayer, even as a group. And I've done this as a group, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy my solo practice, but I really enjoy group dancing. So that's when you come together as a group and you jointly choose an intention. You have that uniting power. You're all focusing on that intention and you're dancing together for that intention, whether it be for peace or for inspiration, or you're trying to manifest something. It really is powerful. Traditionally, shamans, of course, dance for other members of the tribe. In the same way as you would light a candle or pray for someone, you can trance dance for someone. So a lot of us older wheelhouse practitioners, we do a lot of candle work, and we try to transmute that sacred fire. Shamans will transmute through sacred movement. During a trance dance, you might carry on you a picture maybe of a loved one, or you can even place it maybe on a shrine or an altar nearby. It can be a method to bring trauma to the surface. This is a form of therapy. Trance dance is a form of therapy. It has a very special name, and I can't remember what that is right now, but it can help bring out trauma so that it can be processed, and it can be internalized properly. So the setup of the ritual usually is a blindfold, music, dance, and breathing, which facilitates easy access to the subconscious during trance dancing. All right, so It is human nature to move, grow, and transform. Recurring patterns of thought and action tend to make us stagnant and narrow our consciousness. So, in trance dance, there are no fixed steps. You explore and dance your own dance from the deepest place within yourself. And when your dance transforms, something also changes within you and how you relate to the outside world. So, before starting any kind of dance ritual, meditate on what it is that you're willing to receive during that ritual, during that act. Maybe you're going to choose an aspect of your life that you need clarification on. Maybe there's something you need to set into motion. So you can dance to receive an insight or to process something or to maybe even just celebrate life. Maybe something happened and you want to celebrate. But by choosing an intention, you give purpose to the dance, which makes it easier to interpret your inner experience during that and to put those experiences into the context of your everyday life. So start a trance dance with a short moment of intensive, we call it unconscious breathing. It could be that fourfold breath technique, whatever works best for you. Again, there's no hard and fast rules here. Lots of people do different types of breathing techniques for magic and do whichever one works best for you. Your physical body, though, contains all of your personal life experiences. And during the dance, tensions can be released. Solutions to certain problems could suddenly reveal themselves to you. But part of that is the breath work. Breathe consciously. This is going to activate your life force or reactivate your life force, however you want to look at that. Wear a blindfold. Your blindfold is going to help you to not be distracted from visual impulses from your surroundings. It's a tool for sensory deprivation that does allow us to make a journey through ceremonial darkness. And in my traditional rites of witchcraft, which I did a while ago, again, that video's on YouTube, but ceremonial darkness is an important aspect of manifesting through ritual. Now, music takes you on a journey and it allows your body to freely move. So choose sounds, like it could be electronic music, it could be whatever moves you, anything from any part of the world, and use that to dance to those sounds that you find healing, trance inducing, consciousness expanding. I have used a variety of artists. I've used Enigma, Enya, Tangerine Dream. Those three are probably my favorite. Tangerine Dream is probably number one, Enigma number two, and Enya number three. Those are the three artists or music, music selections I use for my trance dance. Now, through our senses, we can absorb about 400 million bits of information per second. Isn't that insane? That's insane when you think about it. Now, of those, only about 2,000 get processed consciously by our brain. So during a trance dance, you kind of make contact with the information that was taken in subconsciously, but not processed. So a lot of times trance dancers often talk about insights they receive about themselves and their lives during the trance dance that is directly correlated to downloading and receiving all the rest of those bits of information that are subconscious ping but didn't process. They just kind of sat there. So that's very interesting. And they've actually done, again, they've done all kinds of interesting studies on this stuff. I love this picture. There's her boobs again. Okay, so trance is a state of consciousness that is experienced regularly by everybody, especially during sports. When you daydream, you're on the train to go to work or downtown. Daydreaming is a trance state. While you're busy in the kitchen peeling peas or potatoes, sometimes we go into a trance state, right? During meditation. So our brain operates on very fast beta waves during our daily conscious activities. Now, when you relax from normal brain activity and move into trance, those frequencies are going to reduce to alpha. Alpha is, think meditation, mental relaxation, and theta. And when you think of theta, think of creativity, dreams, expanded awareness. Again, if you're able to invest in a mind machine, I would definitely encourage that. My original mind machine was a Luma 10. And right now I use a casino. Now I talk about those at great length in my dream series. So the DreamWork series, which includes dream divination, dream magic, dream healing. And so I do in one of my videos, I can't remember which one, talk about mind machines, but they're basically devices that you wear headsets, glasses, earphones. They actually use binaural beats, isochronic beats to change your brain waves. And the LED flashes help coordinate that change of brainwave activity into alpha or theta modes for meditation or for manifestation work. And so, if you're somebody who struggles with shutting it down, like if you have problems with sleep, you're an insomniac because your brain's just going, going, going in that crazy beta state all day long, and you can't turn it off at night, invest in a mind machine. There's some very affordable options out there, a couple $100. You can get a basic mind machine, and that will help with this. Anyway, sorry, I know I go off on tangents here, but we absorb an enormous amount of information through our senses, right? And from that, only a small part of that is really going to be consciously processed by the brain ever. So in trance, again, you can get in touch with the information which was absorbed subconsciously. So you will see connections which you didn't see previously, because you never downloaded that information. You just held it like a holding room. So you might look at things from a different perspective. So, like in dreams, in trance, you process things and you kind of clean up your system, just like you would on a computer. When every now and again you have to empty your trash can or you have to defragment your hard disk. Same thing with our brain, right? People, it has to be defragmented sometimes. The trash can has to be emptied. And if we're not doing meditation, if we're not doing intentional work to defragment and to clean out the clutter, we can start experiencing a lot of blockages in life. So keep that in mind. Trance dance is great for defragmenting the hard drive of you. All right, dance magic. Dancing is used and has been used as a form of spell casting, where movement, intention, and energy are combined to create magical effects, right? In various spiritual and magical traditions. It's very improvisational. It does have, I think, a little bit more structure versus trance dancing. Dance magic usually is very structured. Again, traditional rites of witchcraft, the compass round, treading the mill. These are very structured routines. So the movements themselves act as a physical language, like a sign language you're using with your body, or a ritualistic tool to really direct energy to achieve that specific outcome. So I am going to share one that I have not shared previously. We've never talked about spiral dancing, and I am going to explain how to do the spiral dance since that's very structured. So, how dancing is used in spell casting. So, sacred dance is a common practice in many religious and spiritual traditions to connect with the divine, to express devotion, which is basically give offering, or facilitate communication with spiritual realms. So, dynamic movement, especially if you're doing it in a group, can build powerful shared energy for rituals and spells. Now, in some systems, spell casting is literally a dance, using very specific movements as a form of body language to cast spells, similar to how a spoken language or hand gestures are used. So, practices like witch dancing that uses improvised. I can't say this, improvisation. Oh my gosh, you guys, based on images and qualities to create a metamorphosis of the body and to cast a spell through continuous movement. I think I better take a sip of Starbies. I love doing these videos, but because they're not lives anymore and I don't have other people in the Zoom room with me, like interacting with me, sometimes I start getting very tongue-tied. Anyway, the type of dance can vary from slow, very precise movements to fast, energetic ones, depending on the spell's purpose, right? Are you slowing something down? Are you speeding something up? Are you pushing something away? Are you attracting something? Focused thought and clear intention are always crucial to direct the energy created by the movement. Specific movements are often very symbolic, representing the desired outcome of the spell. And dancing is seen as a way to generate and channel energy. which is then used to manifest the spell's effect, right? So it's like the A to Z here, right? The quantum line. So the spiral dance. This is an old standby in witch dancing. Let's call it witch dancing. It is usually used with larger groups. It's hard. Obviously, you have to have a certain number of people to do spiral dancing. Um, so if you do know people or work with people, even if it's only a couple times a year for the Sabbats, this might be something you might want to incorporate. But if not, it's just a good, informational piece here. Spiral dance is a magical tool used when a group is gathered and you want to get them moving. It's fabulous as an icebreaker. It kind of gets everyone in the group to face each other in a close, range, at least once. And it should be done as the meat of your ceremony, right before you devoke, unless you use a variation that leaves everyone back in a circle. Because it ends in a peak of energy, and it's hard to get people to do anything else after a peak, right? And I'll kind of break that down more for you, but I just wanted to give you kind of a quick overview. So, starting in safety, basically, if you're going to be facilitating a spiral ritual dance, get everyone in a circle by asking them to form a circle and hold hands with two other people. This is usually going to make everyone form a single circle. Explain what is going to happen, that you're going to dance slowly while chanting or while musicians play, and to make sure not to let go of the hands of the people next to you. Now, invite anyone who doesn't want to or isn't able to dance holding hands to go to the edge of the circle and hold the edge, we call it. It's good to have some chairs available for these folks so they can sit where you want them to, or so that you can put them far enough away that they're at least about 10 feet back from the edge of the larger circle. And you're going to have people that can't stand for long periods of time or they're wheelchair bound. You need to accommodate for these individuals. They're part of your group. In addition, let everybody know that the dance feels fastest for those on the outside of the spiral, at the outside of that spiral. And to avoid pulling them off their feet, all the people on the inside of the spiral will need to keep a slow, measured pace because people get excited and speed up. They really do. So salt the circle with some folks who will stick to the pace, right? Make sure you put important people that you know are pace holders in those positions. They're going to stick to the pace and they're going to hold the line back if you do have a larger group. So again, trial and error here, you guys. I mean, true story, years ago, I was at a group event, we'll call it ritual, and there was a lot of us, and the pace holders were not selected appropriately. And there actually was one point where everybody fell down. It happens. It's trial and error. Maybe that spell wasn't meant to produce. I don't know. These things happen sometimes for a more divine reason. Um, Sometimes, intents just don't have blessings. They're not blessed for whatever reason. All right, music. Pick a nice slow chant, and I would have a drummer who could hold a slowish rhythm for it. A drummer or really a group of drummers is always strongly recommended. There's something about that drumming, right? Especially if they're using like a shamanistic drum, oh my gosh, it's just really, it's ideal. But anyways, make sure the drummers understand their job is to keep things slow and steady. So leading the spiral in and out, then you yourself, the leader, are going to join the circle. You begin the chant and the dance. The music, you dance clockwise until everyone in the circle is moving their feet. People can do a grapevine step or the good old pagan shuffle, we call it, right? Then let go of your right hand, warn the person that you're going to be doing this, of course, and continue on inside the other circle, slowly winding in a spiral toward the center. Stay a good distance from the outer ring to help you get closer to the center before you have to turn around. Now, you're going to have your back to the other people at this point. Now, at a certain point, you're going to want to turn the spiral. Now, this is going to vary based on the size of your group or how long you want to dance for and how tight a spiral you want. But the tighter the spiral, the longer it's going to take to get there, just so you know. So I would keep it loose, especially if it's, your first rodeo. Now, when you are ready to turn, pivot on your left foot so you are face to face with the person on your left. Then move down so that you're face to face with the next person in line, and so on and so on. Now, you're going to need to press fairly close to them to keep the shape of the circle, so be assertive. This is a leadership activity. It's not just a ritual. This will keep them from unwinding from the circle, right? So you'll be happy you didn't wind the spiral too tightly at this point. Trust me. And keep doing this until you run out of people. Make sure to make eye contact with any people holding the edges, too. That's important. You always want to be inclusive. Their energy is there, too. It's just as important and impactful. Now, finishing the spiral dance. Boy, these damn boxes. I don't know if you guys see them on your side. I don't think you do, but they're very irritating on my side. Like I keep moving myself and I'm always in the way. All right, finishing the spiral dance. So pivot on your right foot and lead the circle or the spiral back in. Now, if this is just like a greeting dance, like if you want a shorter dance or if you have something else planned in the ritual before you devoke, you may want to opt to remake a circle at this point. But if you're just starting out, maybe don't get too complex because you're going to be facing toward the center of the circle at this point, right? So if you're raising energy for a group purpose, then you will want to wind the spiral until everyone is again facing the center and then encourage the entire spiral of people to rotate. Sending the energy. The center at this point will contain a lot of energy. If it doesn't, then people are they're distracted by the movements or they're not focusing the way they need to. So in this event, hold still in a pack and simplify your chant to the key message, ideally one of the lines in it, whatever your chant is towards your intent. Then sing that over and over till you have raised enough energy. You'll feel it. Now, the tone will likely increase in intensity and peak, at which point the dance will be over. Now, inviting people to ground if the energy was particularly intense is a good idea at this point, too. Always ground afterward. Really, you should do it regardless because you just don't know. But, anyways, moving on. That was the spiral. And I know like some of you are very solo practitioners, but I wanted to present it just so you had it in your toolbox. Since this is one of Terpsichore's definite like wheelhouse manifestation tools. This is the tool I have been working with Terpsichore with for the last year. The Fit Witch. Okay, you're gonna love this section. This is all about working with Terpsichore for healing and rejuvenation because magic can be used to accelerate healing processes and restore the physical body to a more youthful or healthy state. We hear about mana, however you want to pronounce it. It's life force. Now, in some magical systems, excessive use of magic can cause the body to become more mana than matter or alter really its fundamental makeup. This is true. This happened to not my grandma, but my great grandma, Bailey. I think my great great grandma Elizabeth was fine, but I do know my great 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 grandma Sir Linda. So I know two of my maternal lineage. Um, they both did. They were more mana than matter, and they did have health problems because of that. I started to struggle myself, and I'll get into that. But that's when I started working with Terpsy because there was some imbalance there because I was casting so frequently and I'm a third party caster, so I cast for other people. And I was doing so much of that I think I was becoming more mana than matter and I was starting to have definite physical health repercussions because of that. So working with Terpsy again, it's about balancing that excessive use of magic that can be harmful to our physical body or our meat suit. So corruption and overload, repeated use can lead to the body being changed by magic, sometimes with negative consequences like a metabolic system overload. This is true. Many a practitioner, including myself, have become, I almost want to say you have to watch your toxicity levels with magic because it can change the body. And I'm trying to word this appropriately for you guys. I don't want to ever scare anybody off. Magic is a beautiful, wonderful thing, but like anything else in life, you need moderation, right? And if you don't have moderation, especially with magic, because it makes us feel so good, just like a drug, right? It's easy to overdo it. And when we look at metabolic system overload, that usually physically manifests itself in obesity and then all of those obesity related diseases like liver problems, diabetes, pancreatitis, edemas, vascular issues, cardiovascular issues, fatigue, your mental system degradation, not being able to focus, not being able to sleep. That's why if any of you do readings with me, when I divine, one of the first things I look at, regardless of what method I'm using, is the five corners of health. And so those of you that have been read by me, I look at those five corners. That's your spiritual, physical, sexual, mental, and emotional. Now, all five of those systems need to be evaluated to ensure that there is a well-being matrix benefiting you. When I was younger, and really honestly up until just a couple years ago, I always looked at the triangle of spiritual health. So it was spirit, the start of the triangle, and then mental and emotional well-being here. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to physical or sexual energies. I just figured, well, those are, human problems. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at spirit, emotion, mental aspects, and that's what's important. And when we forget to include physical and sexual aspects, problems will arise eventually because those things need attention too. So that is why I want to go over how I use Terpsy and how you can use Terpsy to ensure I'm not getting too much into the sexual health. I do that in sacred sexuality, but the physical meat suit health, how it's important to keep balance there if you're a practitioner. I just rambled and I apologize. All right, fitness witchcraft exploration. I found some wonderful, oh shit, these wonderful little, I just love it. The little witch on the barbells. I love her. Anyway. Okay, working out as magic and ritual. This is a comprehensive guide for all my witchlings here. Okay, so all of you practitioners, listen up. Working out is magic, it is ritual. In the last year that I have been changing how I use my physical body by being more active, going, to the gym, doing circuit training, hydraulic lifting, pre-core lifting. I've lost number one over 100 pounds in a year. And not only that, all of my levels, my blood work is beautiful. And I feel my body feels rejuvenated. I think I was letting it just kind of drain away. I was so focused on my spiritual health. I forgot about my physical health. In my mind, I was going to yoga. I was meditating. I was eating healthier food options, too much of them. But I was doing all of the things, but I really truly wasn't. And that was manifesting itself physically because I was so ultra focused on spirit, emotions, and mental, my special, pyramid, my triangle. And I completely was like, my physical body, who cares about that? Well, my physical body got pissed. My Mars got pissed and they let me know about it. So Terpsy really has been life-saving for me in many ways. Like she really gave me direction. Okay, so working out is magic and ritual, how you can work with Terpsy, kind of like in a gym ritual sense, right? So I never used to go to the gym. Now I do. Somehow I do, and I love it. I've incorporated so much magical practice too into my physical self-training. So physical activity in whatever way your body can accomplish that, given that we all have different mobilities and abilities, and some of us manage a disability or chronic illness. Physical activity is a celebration. It can be done at any level. Like my mom, for example, she has MS. She does exercises from a seated position in a chair where it's safe for her so she doesn't lose her balance and hurt herself, but it's still physical activity. Now, there used to be, oh my gosh, years and years ago, for those of you in your 40s, 50s, do you guys remember Sit and Be Fit? It was on PBS and it was a whole series. It was this woman, she would teach you how to do different exercises in a seated position in a chair. I think it was called Sit and Be Fit. Anyway, sorry. All right, going to the gym can be a way for magic positivity and body positivity to both kind of dance together to a shared rhythm. So I'm not going to the gym in order to watch numbers on a scale go down, but to acknowledge and love the physical body I'm in and to work it in the same way that I work my spirit when I carry out any of my magical practices. So we're going to look at ways in which some elements of going to the gym might be incorporated into magical work. So, I'm on a journey. We're all on a journey. This lifetime is short. It's a flash in the pan. It's one of many, but that's, make it last as long as we can, right? So we want to write a love letter to physical exercise and magic and the transformational ways in which physical and magical work can be made as one. All right. So let me find my arrow. And I gotta take another sip of Starbies. My goodness, it has been dry and it shouldn't be. It's like the middle of October. All right. Now, I like to, New Year's is right around the corner. And, depending on your practices, New Year's has many different names. We're just going to call it New Year's. Um, you can like kind of like get yourself in a headspace to start something right around the new year. New Year workouts are more magical by summoning the fire element. When we work our bodies in magic, you are working with sacred fire, but it's your internal fire, right? You're embodying what we call the workout deities. There are many, actually. Terpsi is one of many from many different pantheons that are associated with working out your physical body, using your physical body in magic. Sweating out spells, that's a thing. Some spells, we release and activate that energy through fire, through water, through earth, through air, through sweat. Okay, sweat is part of that whole water matrix, right? It is a fluid um, act of releasing an intent. So sweating out spells is a thing. And that's also in releasing. If there's been attachments, maybe absorptions. A lot of us have fitness altars. I have a very, very tiny fitness altar, and it's a traveling altar. I carry it in my gym bag. And I actually keep it in my pocket. It's not like it's sitting on a table. It's just a very tiny matchbox altar that I bring with me. So it's just things you can think about. But ritual attire. So when does the ritual begin if you're a gym witch? When going to the gym or using any household items, while watching a YouTube fitness video, whatever you're doing, maybe your gym is your living room. You don't need to set out your magical space like you do with trance dancing, where you're blindfolded and and you could like fall into a plant or something. Um, that's usually already done for you. You already have your little area you're going to work out in your living room or at the gym, whatever, the equipment's already ready for you. So you're more likely to start getting your magic on when you're donning your ritual attire, when you're putting on the clothes that you're using for that workout. So gym wear can be viewed as ritual attire because it's something you don't wear on a regular basis. And in again, if you go back to my old Patreon or old YouTube videos, I talk about ritual items like especially jewelry, things that you only wear for very specific magical acts. And this is part of that. So gym wear can be viewed as ritual attire because it is something you don't wear on a regular basis. You wear it for the gym or for working out, exercising. If desired, you can select clothes that match or enhance your gym persona. So, some of us, like myself, when I'm working out physically, it is for an intent. My intents vary. You might want to stick to one at first, but if it's money acquisition, I might be wearing my green jumpsuit. If it is, love boundary reinforcement with my family and friends, I may wear a yellow or a burgundy gym suit. So again, you can coordinate that if you want to. I want to feel good about myself and my physical practice. So I do wear specific colors to the gym. Um, I do a lot of black and red. Those are colors I'm drawn to, but to each their own. You may feel like, light, bright colors inspire you more. Colors and designs are important if you think they are important. If you don't think they're important, they're not. It's what you feed energy to that matters. Maybe it doesn't matter. As you progress in your personal development, you may choose to add to your ritual kit or your gym or fitness ritual kit. Like I used the example, I recently added some gloves for lifting weights to avoid blisters, right? So when I put those gloves on, I'm ready to go. So another practitioner might feel that specific gym footwear is essential. So they may need the swoosh emblem of Nike, that winged goddess of victory, or they may feel like earbuds, mean business to them, and the use of sound helps them immerse themselves more deeply in their physical practice. Whatever works for you is the point I guess I'm trying to make. So choosing and putting on your attire can make you feel like you're energized and ready to begin the work. Um, your attire might be a whole gym kit, a swimsuit, it could be anything really. It's charged with energy, which is the main point. And each time you engage with that energy in that physical practice, it's charged even further. I will tell you, I've gone as far as using body markers to draw sigils on my body before as I'm getting ready to work out. So that's something you can do, and you will sweat those sigils out. And I get into that a little bit here, but there's so much you can do with gym witchery. It's amazing. I love this yoga witch keeping calm since 1692. Is that not adorable? All right, pre-gym ritual preparation. One thing you're very likely to bring to the gym is water. Or if you're working out at home, you're going to have a bottle of water, and you may drink more than one bottle, but your first bottle could be charged before you either leave the house or get ready to hit it in the living room. Entering and leaving the sacred space. In my gym, you have to walk through these pods that you have to like do a key fob scan, and then anytime you want to enter or leave, you have to do that. So the door slides open, you enter the pod, and then the next door will slide open to let you go into the center. So in my heart, like these doors represent the opening and closing of the ritual. That action, it defines the transition between the mundane and sacred space. It's like a signal that magical practice is about to take place. And it's almost like the definitive moment when it ceases as well. So with the aid of those pods, you know, entering the gym, it's activated. Leaving the gym is like grounding. It's like you're grounding that energy. So for you, if you're at home doing it in the living room, you might want an activation point, you know, maybe the doorway you walk into, the threshold, and a grounding point. Again, it could be that same doorway or maybe a different doorway. Maybe you have two doors and you want to exit through the other door for grounding. And again, don't forget threshold magic. You can use threshold magic for that activation and for that grounding. Again, that was a previous video. There's so many videos on there, you guys. I'm so sorry. I don't know which one. All right. So not all gyms have such obvious portals or gates for magical working. Entering and leaving through a simple door or designating a space for working out in, like say your living room, can also open and close a sacred space if it's done with intent. Uh, I don't use changing rooms very often, but some practitioners can incorporate elements like changing or showering to begin or end their magical workings in the gym or with their fitness routine too. So even at home, if you're not going to the gym, maybe that's how you signal your grounding, your deactivation is during a shower post workout. Whatever works for you. Again, I'm giving you a lot of different examples here so like you can kind of figure out what would work best for you. Mindfulness, of course, plays a key part in attaining a magical state in a gym. There might be a moment where you're flooded with reverence for your body as you explore the liminal space within or just outside your comfortable limits, kind of feeling the effects of air and blood move around your system, considering whether to spread that sensation around your body or to relieve maybe a tired area, or pour your focus into those parts of the body which are working the hardest, right? You may have a million thoughts or none. Yet physical activity helps a person connect to the moment and respect how mind, spirit, and body are all part of the whole. And if we can, get those three elements to work together, that's power right there. Ritual practice. So there are numerous ways to explore the gym as a magical working too. You can use the endeavor as an offering. I have done that to my goetic deities. When I have a really like super intense workout, I will usually use that as an offering to Asmodeus or to Paimon. So what you can do is, if you're working with a deity, you could state, I will do this next rep or this session as a gift or sacrifice to, XYZ deity. Other things you can do, tucking a cloth into your bra as you train. with the intention of using that cloth in a later specific working. If you incorporate running into your practice, running internally, it repeat a mantra. This is mantra. So this is kind of a crossover to Buddhism a little bit. Again, there's another video on Buddhist magic. Anyway, mantras, that is sacred words, sacred syllables. You can incorporate mantra work into your running, that you can use, and again, you have that cloth in your bra, right? So you can use that cloth in ritual later, but you're almost like activating and absorbing an intent by doing that mantra work. You can, use paper, basic paper, with your effort in this way too. So, um, use it later for statements of intention, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's written magic, and Terpsy is all about written magic, which is why I'm trying to give you examples of how you can use writing magic along with physical magic. But again, you can draw out sigils, write out your intents, put that on cloth, put that on paper, put that in your bra, put that in your shoe, and then you're going to use that later in some sort of maybe a sacred fire offering burn, or maybe you're going to load that into a candle, a rootwork compound candle you're going to burn later. There's lots of ways you can use these items. This is about infusing the energy for further activation later. If you don't wear a bra, you can stuff cloth or paper into your sock or footwear too. If you're in a wheelchair or doing seated work like that sit and be fit, you may wish to place personal items like paper, cloth, threads beneath you as you sit. Um, there was, I use this example, there was a Roman goddess of the sewers, and her name was Closina. And I might be butchering her name, but she was acknowledged as the goddess of transformation and purification, even though she was the goddess of the sewers. So I make that joke because, with my mom especially, because she has MS and she does sit in a chair. And I have told her like to sit on paper, like rice paper. She is going to use like, for sigils or consumption spell work to infuse that energy. And we always make a joke because it's right under her butt. Like if she farts during her workout or whatever. It's just, anyways, it's cute, but it works. The goddess of the sewers, that was transformation and purification magic right there. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent again. I'm so sorry, you guys. All right. So if I'm wearing gym gloves for a whole session, I will slip sigils in there. That sigil is being activated, charged, and released through doing my gym session. Now I can seed it with intention and then just forget about it, right? Because I can't feel it in my glove. Once it's in there doing its thing. So what if it gets sweaty or smudged? That's wonderful. Honestly, it really is wonderful. Its outer form is becoming increasingly distanced from the conscious effort of creating it. And I hope that makes sense to you guys. It's working its way even further into the subconscious. And so what I mean by these two sentences is important, because a lot of times in magic, we fixate on the outcome. We fixate and fixate. And when the outcome isn't happening or we're not seeing signs, we get frustrated, we get angry, we get restless. And that really takes us away from the structure of those manifest presenting. So if we can do magic in a way that makes us forget about that outcome and not fixate on it, boy, that's wonderful. Anytime that happens, that's wonderful. So again, I've been known to paint sigils on my body where they won't be seen and that the physical activity sweat them out, kind of like a charge and release. So I will do this for what I call quick casts. Say I have a meeting later in the day with somebody I'm nervous about, I might do a quick cast sigil for influence and persuasion or glamour. Say I am waiting to hear back about a credit card I applied for. I may do, a debt approval, like sigil, a debt amendment sigil, and I might sweat that out to ensure that I get that approval. So, I mean, there's different things you can do. I like doing that for quick cast work. Like that same day I'm expecting something, like I will release that same day. Okay, anyway, moving on. I also use these very thin colored ribbons. Some of you probably have seen that if you have ordered my physical products, like my oils and tinctures that I make for you, and then I ship them to you for your own personal practice. So sometimes you'll see those thin colored ribbons in there. So there are times I might charge a length of ribbon I'll be using to make products by wearing it wrapped around my ankle, like out of sight, or in my hair if my hair is tied up. But again, I'm trying to charge it with Mars energy usually. So a lot of my products that require that Mars influence, you will see those little ribbons. And that's how I charge them, you guys. Now you know one of my secrets. Um, if you work with deities or the tarot, you can use reps or time on a treadmill to focus on a cherished deity or a specific card, considering it from new angles, maybe. You know, I'm personally of the feeling that gym work creates space for new thoughts to flow, along with the increase in oxygen and blood movement, right? That all kind of goes together. So, new thoughts may arise during the workout itself, or if your mind doesn't work that way, not all of our minds work the same. Maybe you can zone out with the repetition of movement and create space for creativity and for new ideas to flow in afterwards. So you can work it from multiple angles, you guys. All right. I love this gym witch. I found her by chance online. Is she not the most adorable? I just love her. Look at her. Her whole ritual with her barbells there. All right. Anyway, meditation is a means also to increase awareness of your body and still our monkey mind, often using breathing or your body. So, to me, any form of physical activity can get close to being a movement based meditation. So, examples for those of you that like using the rowing machine, I love using the rowing machine as a meditation tool because you're kind of nice and you're safe. You're strapped in. There's no chance of falling over. You know, no one in the gym is going to care if you close your eyes while you're doing the rowing machine. And if they do, fuck them. Who cares? Path working is your chance to go on a journey through an inner landscape. So I find that the treadmills and the rowing machines are very conducive to that. With a treadmill, you already have the forward movement. You're either walking or running. So you have the chase, the hunt of path working, right? You have yourself as the protagonist on an inner journey. So it's amazing what the mind can kind of throw up when you seek to explore these internal terrains while you're moving your body. So sometimes I use a treadmill and my timing on it as an exploration of tarot or as an offering again to deity. Terpsy specifically, I do a lot of treadmill and rowing machine offerings to Terpsy. Um, but I'll dedicate, you know, so many minutes or seconds of walking or running or resting to maybe a specific deity or to a specific like designated if I'm looking. I don't do too much of this tarotically anymore, but if I were to examine the tarot, say I was focusing on, say, judgment, you know, I might dedicate a certain amount of time on the treadmill to judgment for insight with judgment. So allowing free reign, you know, is also a way you can approach this to see what comes up, you know, allowing the body to kind of take charge and the subconscious to seep into our conscious workings, right? So ripple effect. So contemplation is ideal for the gym as so much of the practice enables you to focus on specific images, qualities, deities. You know, on the treadmill, I might focus on the face of an entity or a transient spirit, a client that I'm doing work for, you know, a deity that I'm working with, you know, and I can hold that image, you know, I can love it, I can explore it, I can converse with it, I can do offering with it. So I think being in a gym and using our body to do that kind of work is very impactful. It's visualization work, right? So visualization is my absolute favorite activity for the rowing machine. I know a lot of you again that get readings from me. I'm always beating that stick to death about, you know, you got to visualize, you know, play that movie over and over again in your brain until it happens, right? So when I'm on the rowing machine, I don't know if it's just the rowing, like the nature of rowing that leads my thoughts to water, but more than anything else, I kind of love to strap in. I don't set timers. I just close my eyes and I just kind of row, row, row. You know, it's like slipping into the stream of things in my system, my energetic system. It almost feels like I'm heading down the river Styx, like, or swimming with mermaids, in the Mariana Trench, or just kind of letting the thoughts and images of whatever I'm feeling or experiencing in that moment kind of come to me. It is very releasing, especially if you're a practitioner or third party practitioner and you cast a lot for other people. It is very releasing. And what comes to the forefront can really surprise you sometimes or be used at a later time in a creative work. Um, as a matter of fact, I have 9 acrylic on canvas and some pastel uh, multimedia artworks that I have around the Muse altar, which now are starting to take over my bedroom fully. But those works of art were offerings to the Muses that through imagery that came to me during my time on the rowing machine while I was open to that visualization process. So you might be surprised and you might create something really beautiful. It also reminds you that the divine is always just around the corner, right? Waiting for us to reach out and to welcome them in. And so anytime I do an art piece after a rowing machine epiphany visualization, something always is brought to me, some sort of beautiful door opening or favor is granted in something I'm asking for. There's always a beautiful payout, I say, right? All right, so building witchy energy. I'm sorry, I might be rambling a little bit more than usual today, you guys. All right, so most importantly, I think physical training of any kind is such a concrete way of acknowledging and building intent, discipline, and work, especially work ethic when it comes to magic. So I see intent and discipline as being like a muscle, right? They're like muscles. To intend to go to the gym, then to indeed go to the gym, then to exert effort in line with your true will. Each time you do this, you're building witchy energy, you're working those muscles. So telling yourself things, those affirmations, it's another thing I beat to death. Affirmations. I can do this. I will do this. I am doing this. I did this, right? No wishy-washy. I'm gonna maybe I wanna blah blah bullshit. You're doing it. And if we're talking about results, you get rewarded for your effort at the end of every session. It's kind of like this, I say a delicious feeling in your body. That's 1 part endorphins, 2 parts a sense of personal achievement, right? So immediate rewards from magical practice is such a boon when it comes to placing a focus on connecting with your will and your environment, mundane or otherwise. So what about grounding in a ritual? So the minute you stop and your body thanks you is to me a moving and grounding experience. The drink of water you're taking, that quick towel down, taking that moment to connect your feet to the earth, the floor of the gym, the world, whatever, and then heading back through the gym, whether that's an actual gym or your living room gym, heading through those thresholds, those portals, those doors to fully close that sacred space, that to me is grounding. It may be different for you, but for me, that's grounding. All right. So, ritual and symbolism. I might have to sneeze. Hang on, you guys. Maybe not. Okay. Ritual and symbolism. So perhaps everyone who goes to the gym has their own versions of symbolism and ritual, whether or not they choose to view it in these terms. So, as I mentioned earlier, the doors to a gym can gain ritual significance. The opening and closing of a padlock on a gym locker can act as a charged seal. If one works with the magical meaning of numbers, you can incorporate this into personal practice with reference to equipment settings or time spent on them. When you go to the gym, you can seek and find your own symbolism and your own magical moments. Your time at the gym is filled with tiny magical moments too. Time and activity broken down into small acts of meaning and beauty. So just another 10 seconds. You may say that as you hold a plank or you work a treadmill, just 4 more reps. It's just you and the moment and the pact that you have made with yourself to do the work. So I want you to view the gym as almost a liminal space. does that make sense? A physical liminal space? I don't know if it does, but let's pretend it does. Ritual physical activity doesn't need to occur always in a gym. Pool sessions where you kind of like doing that water magic, right? Again, I said chair-based exercises work, acknowledging, what your body needs to be safe as well as worked is important. So whatever your practice, you can choose to perceive and shape it as a magical act. The gym can be a sacred space, but it's just one option for ritualizing your physical activity. I know somebody who does jump ropes. Um, they have like this high tech jump rope, like it has sensors in it. So like when they hold it, it like does all these sensormetric, biometric things. But they competitively jump rope like 2 or 3 times a week, and that's all they do. But that's part of their magical practice is those jump roping sessions. So it can be whatever you want. So if you attend hula hoop classes, grasping that hoop is a magical act. As you feel the energy coursing through you, you've put some of your soul into that hoop so that when you grasp it, it gives your soul energy right back. Um, and when you climb into a familiar saddle on your bike, I live in a big city. I live in the Twin Cities. Lots of people on bikes out here. And I love biking, but I'm not going to lie. I'm a little horrified. The drivers out here, I mean, oh my gosh, I've seen so many close calls. Anyway, so, if you have a bike, you like riding bike, that's your steed, you've named it, it's your companion, it's helping you progress to where you want to go. So you have your body, you have your spirit, and there's so much great beauty infused between those two. So the very embodiment of raw and nuanced power, through riding a bike is very powerful for spell casting. Physical and magical work is an opportunity to acknowledge your body and seek to make it an extension of your spirit, right? It's a beautiful act filled with love. And all acts of beauty hold magic at their core. So if you can move, you can explore a way to exercise. If you can feel your spirit, you can work magic, right? Very simple. Very simple. It doesn't have to be overly complex. I know I always give you guys lots of complex things to think about, but it doesn't have to be crazy complex. Physical exercises can be used in spell casting to focus energy, release emotions, and charge intentions through mindful movement. So, for instance, a workout can be a ritual to charge an object, like a sigil painted on gloves, or a series of exercises can be designed to represent specific spells or intentions. With the physical exertion helping to build power for that magical goal. So this approach integrates the physical and mental as movements can serve as metaphors or prayers for life situations and can help center the mind and body before or after rituals. Charge objects with movement, incorporate a spell component like a sigil into your workout routine by drawing it on an object you use, like I've said, the pair of gloves or a ribbon. The physical act of exercising helps to charge and release the intention embedded in that object. Now, perform exercise as spell. I didn't know how to really say that. Exercise as spell. I guess that's the closest it makes sense. But you can design a workout where each exercise is named after a spell or a specific intention. So, for example, use push ups for strength or a series of squats for grounding or release or clearage. The physical exertion directly fuels the magical intent. Use physical activity for emotional release. Exercise can be a form of catharsis, right? Releasing inner pressure and de-stressing. I would say dream stressing, de-stressing liminal spaces. Whenever I start talking about liminal spaces, I immediately go to dream work. I apologize, you guys. So this physical release serves to clear the mind and can be a powerful metaphor for releasing negative emotions or situations you want to remove from your life. So it can be for severance work, you guys. It can be for cut and clear work. Exercise is great, I think, for cutting cords that no longer serve you, to whether it's people, places, habits, behaviors, patterns, whatever. Integrate it with grounding. So grounding exercises like those used in meditation can be incorporated before or after a workout to focus energy on a specific intention or to draw power from the earth for your magical work. Enhance your mental focus, right? Activities like yoga, just walking can increase mental alertness and clarity. So this improved state of mind can be beneficial for focusing on a spell's intent, especially when combining it with deep breathing exercises. You know, I think breathing is important. Um, Focus intention while exercising. So using repetitive exercises such as running on a treadmill as a way to focus on a specific deity, a specific tarot card, or a desired outcome. These are wonderful ways to manifest. You know, the repetition or the repetitive action can help you explore the subject from new angles and build focus for it. Um, I swear I'm going to sneeze. I don't know why it's not coming, you guys. I'm so sorry. Now I'm getting like all googly googled up there. Okay. Anyway, I must have been talking now at least for an hour for this to be happening. All right. Fitness witchcraft is the fusion of physical exercise and magical practice, harnessing intention, elemental energy, and ritual to make movement more meaningful. So, whether it's channeling the power of fire in high intensity workouts, or connecting to the earth through strength training, or immersing in water energy through intuitive movement, like trance dance, by the way, fitness can be both physical and spiritual. So the body is a vessel for energy. And when movement aligns with intention, it is magic, you guys. It's magic. And that is it. So I have our Etsy, our Patreon, our main website, and our YouTube on here for you. Let me close this out so I can say a couple of that was long. I have no idea how long I've been recording, but that was a lot of information. And I know sometimes I go overboard with these, but you know, I want to give you guys as many tools for your toolbox as I possibly can. And I love this particular deity. I think Terpsy is wonderful to work with. I think we live in a day and age where it's very easy to forget about how powerful and important the maintenance and use of our physical body is. And so we all need kind of to be brought back to our Mars or our first house Saturn, and you know, really utilize this gift. This is a gift too. We can use it. I think a lot of times we forget, like it's just our meat suit. It's just like our transportation vehicle while we're here doing our work, working towards our North Node. But it's so much more than that. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I want to thank all my Patreon subscribers for subscribing and making this series possible through your monthly subscription fees. If you guys have any questions, you know, all you have to do is shoot me an email. Sometimes I do get a little backlogged, but I always do respond. Just be patient with me. All right, stay magical, everybody.